Hi, friends. Thank you for joining me today for another lesson on social emotional development and some practices that can help you get to a point of consistently well managed emotions. And we'll say it that way today. I am presenting for Mindful Seed, a nonprofit organization here in Northern Nevada, developed and in existence to help educators and students. And so thank you so much for being here. My name is Molly. I'll be your guide today. We are going to be doing a lesson on what I like to call the bridge from self-awareness, crossing over to self-management. And we'll talk about what that bridge is and the steps that we need to take to effectively self-manage. And what are we self-managing? The whole interior world that we have. And mostly what we are managing is the behavior and the words that show up out there in the manifest world. As we do our lesson, let's get started with an Inspire check-in. A couple of 2 weeks ago now, Stephanie did a lesson with us on the Inspire check-in. And if you remember that lesson, please kind of go back into your mind. And if you're brand new to the Inspire check-in, I'll walk you through. It's a way to come into current time with yourself and be right in deep self-awareness. The Inspire part of it is we look inside and we take a look through the layers or the different areas that make up the self. And so we look first at our social component of the self. And as we look and we're checking in, we will rate ourselves 1 to 5. 1, not doing so great. 5, couldn't be better. And so check in with yourself. We'll have a little bit of time and just kind of check in. How am I in the social aspect of myself? You know, we've all become so well acquainted with this phrase, social distancing. And what does that really mean for you now that we've been, some of us a week, some of us a couple of weeks now? How are you doing in your social self? 1 to 5. You can write it down. Just jot it down on a little piece of paper, or you can just remember. But make sure you have a number. We'll come back to these numbers in just a moment. As we move through the Inspire, P is for our physical self, the physical level of the self. And so just come into current time in your physical body. And how are you doing? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough exercise? Have you checked in with your body? Have you said hello to yourself with a friendly smile yet today? Yeah. And then we can also look at the physical as our surroundings where we live. And so most of us are sheltering in place. We've been home. And are you a little unsatisfied with your physical space? Is it crowded? Do you feel crunched? Or are you okay? Or do you have a place where you can go outside and get some fresh air and get some sunshine? So just kind of check in with your whole physical self. And then the I is your intellectual level of the self. And are you getting enough intellectual stimulation? Good quality intellectual stimulation? Are you totally overwhelmed by the news and the constant barrage of information? Do you need to disconnect from news and social media for a little while? Are you reading a good book? Are you learning anything new? Again, you're checking yourself from 1, I'm not so good with my intellectual part of myself, or 5, pretty good. I'm doing an online course, or I'm reading a new book, whatever it might be. So check in there. As we continue with the Inspire, we move to relationship, the R. So how are you doing in your relationships? Again, 1 to 5. Maybe things are really great at home. Maybe it is really so nice to finally have time to sit down with your family for dinner. And then maybe, maybe not so much. Maybe it's a little tricky to have everybody home under the same roof all day long, working from home, schooling from home. So just check in. There's no judgment here when we do an Inspire check-in. We're getting a bead on how we are at the different layers of the self. And then E, your emotional self. How are you there? Are you managing through the uncertainty, a little anxiety, a little doubt, some fear? Are you hopeful? Where are you in your emotional layer of the self? And again, without judgment, because this is just a reality of where we are, what's happening right now as we check in. Yeah. And then let's take a look, kind of pan out from the layers and look at the whole self. Hopefully you have a 1 through 5 in those different areas of yourself. And let's look at the high number. In positive psychology, we like to celebrate the good. We give ourselves a little dopamine hit. Like my physical is a 5 today. I did a yoga practice. I recorded a yoga practice for the studio where I teach to put up on their website. Then I went for a nice long walk in the sunshine today. I ate a really healthy lunch, drinking a lot of water today. So my physical is really good. And so when I recognize what is going well, I give myself a little dopamine hit. I start to lay down a neural pathway of a new habit of good physical activity, right? And then I look specifically at what I am doing to contribute to that high number. Well, I'm doing my physical movement practices. I'm eating healthy, which is most days normal for me. But what am I doing now that's different? I've actually scheduled it in to my day. So I am doing something very specific that is having a nice result for myself. Okay, so I'm laying down again this habit of self-worth. I'm doing that. I'm creating a schedule. I'm sticking to it. I'm seeing results. So we start with the positive. We have a sense of, I can do this. We have a sense of optimism, a sense of hope. And now we look at the number that might be in the trough, a little bit low. So whichever number that is for you, again, there is no judgment in that. It happens. It's the way that we are as human beings. And so what's a little bit low? And then think to yourself, what is one thing, just one, we want to make this real and doable, one thing that I could do either today or tomorrow, very close time frame, that would increase that area of myself by 3%. Tiny numbers, baby steps, right? So for example, if maybe it's really crowded in your house, and you're not used to all the people being there, and dinner time's a crazy jumble of people and event. What could make that a little bit smoother? 3% smoother, right? Maybe I'll start fixing dinner 20 minutes early. Something like that, just a really small bite that you can manage that would lift that low area. Write that down for yourself. I will start dinner 20 minutes early tonight. Okay? When we write it down, we bring a thought into the manifest world so it becomes a real thing. We can see it. It's almost tangible. As we go through this Inspire check-in, friends, we come right into current time in our self-awareness. We have as we kind of pan out from the different layers, we have a pretty wide perspective of my self-awareness. Yeah, overall, I'm doing okay. Overall, I'm doing okay. But some days when you do the Inspire check-in, your overall might be, I'm not doing okay. I'm not doing so great. And then you adjust from where you are and you self-manage. Now, this is what we're going to be really diving into today, is this bridge. We can be extremely self-aware and not self-manage. When do we need to self-manage? When my self-awareness says, you're not okay. And maybe let's use an example of well, let's say fear. Let's take this example of fear, uncertainty, doubt that kind of escalates, that gets a little bit more than just like, oh, I'm worried. Okay, so we have a state of fear. And what happens in fear for the nervous system is when the amygdala wakes up and says, threat, threat, threat. With fear, we need to get out of there. We need to flee the scene. We feel like we don't have a good chance of survival if we fight. And so I gotta make tracks real quick. And as we are in this state of fear, if the situation, the conversation kind of escalates, I can be very aware that something is happening and that I don't want to be here and that I'm feeling I got to get out of here now. And I'm self-aware of that. And I can watch myself yell at the other person and say, I got to get out of here, or leave me alone, or whatever happens when we have to demonstrate that that fear is running the show. And so I can watch myself yell. I can watch myself be destructive in a relationship because of my fear. And I'm very self-aware, but I'm not self-managing, right? And you kind of, for yourself, kind of pick what emotion runs through you, which one it is that is the big one that you have to deal with more often than the others. Okay, so you're going into your own world, your own self-awareness, moving through your experience. Now, when I have this situation of a strong emotion, the untrained mind will most often end up in a regrettable emotional episode, right? Because it's hard to control the surge of emotion. It's hard to self-manage. It can be really tricky to be self-responsible, right? And so there's a bridge that crosses this really deep canyon of the regrettable emotional episodes. Before I learned this and I was just going along in my life trying to figure out what the heck I was doing, I ended up at the bottom of that canyon a lot. The regrettable emotional episode canyon. I lived down there in the bottom of that thing. I figured out how to build a ladder up the side of the mountain to get myself back out. There's a bridge. We don't have to end up in the bottom of that horrible place when we can't get a hold of ourselves. And that bridge has two side rails. Okay, so picture in your mind a mountaintop over here that would be my self-awareness, a big canyon that separates the two, and the mountain of self-management. There's a bridge. It's kind of one of those hanging bridges that swings. It's a little precarious, but you can totally do it. When you walk onto that bridge, you take hold of the left handrail, and that's your breath. Your breath is your first tool to walk yourself over that bridge to self-management so you don't tumble down into a regrettable episode. So you step onto that bridge from your self-awareness. I'm afraid. I'm about to demonstrate some behavior. And I got a lot of stuff going on. I need to get out of there. I need to flee. Your self-awareness kicks in. You step onto that bridge. You grab with your left hand the rail of the breath. And you breathe. And you breathe out. You exhale first. So this is training. This is the practice. As you exhale, you begin to dissipate the chemical cascade of fear. Right? The hormones, the chemicals, all of the chemistry, that's going through your nervous system because the amygdala says, threat, you're going to die. This is very scary. So an exhale will begin to dissipate. You're going to breathe big into the belly. Up high in the chest can make the fear increase. So you're going to breathe a big, deep, round belly breath, and then you're going to exhale. Long and slow on the exhale. And then you're going to inhale again, big, deep, round belly, and exhale again. You're going to give yourself at least a count of 5 deep belly breaths. And that's your first steps onto that bridge. As you breathe, your amygdala is quieting down, kind of settling itself. Your prefrontal cortex, which is your executive functioning, it's your rational thinking process, it's your cause and effect relationship understanding, it's your predictive and future planning, it's your empathy, it's your compassion. So when we can breathe and begin to quiet the amygdala and the nervous system, releasing that chemical cascade of fear, as we breathe these deep belly breaths, we get oxygen, lots of fresh oxygen, nutrients into the brain. The prefrontal cortex of the brain comes back online, and we can move into a place of rational thinking. And when we come into the rational thinking, the right-hand rail of our bridge, right? Because remember, we're on that swinging bridge over that big chasm beneath us. Breath on the left hand. My right-hand rail is my ethics, my ethical behavior. And the question that we want to ask ourselves, harmful or helpful? Okay, and that's a really very foundational, like I can come, my brain at this point can come into an understanding of harmful or helpful. Okay. As I breathe, I continue to breathe, I continue to dissipate, I come more and more into my rational thinking, empathetic mind, and I can ask myself, is what I'm about to do harmful or helpful? Okay. And we know in our intrinsic knowing of a human being on the planet, we know words, behaviors, and actions that are harmful. And we know those that are helpful. And so when I am on that bridge, I can take as long as I need to be there. I can breathe. I can be in that space of contemplation. Harmful or helpful? And ask yourself several times, harmful or helpful, harmful or helpful, little tongue twister, right? And then when you come into this space, you can kind of look at when I'm in a state of fear and I'm just reacting, my response is leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And what is the need behind that phrase, behind those words? I need some space. I just need to step back. This is too scary for me to confront. But those words with that tone of being fearful, that can easily flop over to anger. That can be very harmful. And so when I'm in that place of thinking harmful or helpful, I can see, oh, yeah, leave me alone can be harmful. And I realize in a moment I can always say it later, but I can never take it back. And so I reconsider. Now, is this going to be happening in the moment when you're on the bridge in the event? No, that's why we do it beforehand. That's why you're learning it now. Okay. So we're kind of prepping you. When you look behind the words, leave me alone, the need is I need some space. I just have to be away from this scary situation. I'm going to have a meltdown. Things have escalated. What is another phrase or another set of words that I can use that are helpful, but that still address my need? Right? Think for yourself for a minute here. Please excuse me. I need some space. We have gotten a hold of ourselves enough through breathing, through self-questioning, harmful or helpful, and I can tell that I was just about to yell, leave me alone. But I caught myself, and I know that's harmful. So I'm processing, and this is all happening in a split second. I need some space. Please excuse me. And then you remove yourself from the situation. And then you gather yourself. And so right there, as you say, I need some space, please excuse me, that is self-management. That is a very responsible decision. You know that if you don't flee from that situation, you are going to do something that is harmful. So you have processed and made a very, very good decision for yourself, a very beneficial decision for others involved. Please excuse me, I need some space. And then you go. And so as you are in that moment of self-management, that is a very responsible decision. Then that circles back to your self-awareness. And as you have removed yourself, maybe you go outside, maybe you just step away for some fresh air. You go back into your self-awareness. Wow. Wow, what a moment. And here's, again, you're going to build yourself a really strong habit, a neural pattern of positive, constructive behaviors. No more regrettable emotional episodes. When you step away from that situation and you come into your self-awareness, you're breathing again, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I did it. I just self-managed. I was just a responsible decision maker. I just didn't harm somebody. I didn't harm myself. I didn't harm them. I made a good decision. So you're giving yourself a big dopamine hit by congratulating yourself. And you're laying down a really strong foundation for a new neural pathway of self-management. And so it kind of works in this consecutive feedback loop. And so you're stepped away from that situation. You've avoided crashing and burning at the bottom of that canyon of regrettable episode. And you have stepped onto the mountain of self-management. Congratulations. Congratulations. That's a huge step. Now, I mentioned it's not going to happen in the moment of, okay? As you learn this thing, you're going to be thinking about it, right? Oh yeah, there's this thing I can do when I get self-aware before I say a mean word or before I act out or before my behavior is destructive. I'm going to get a hold of myself and I have a bridge. I'm going to cross a bridge. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to exhale. I'm going to give myself at least 5 deep breaths. Maybe your mom used to say, 10 deep breaths, right? However many you need. And then my ethics is going to kick in and I'm going to ask myself, harmful or helpful, harmful or helpful, harmful or helpful. I'm going to ask myself as many times as I need to until my thinking mind comes back online, my amygdala is settled, and then I'm going to self-manage. Okay. Now, the first time you have the opportunity, you may have beginner's luck. And you might well avoid a catastrophic situation. You go out and rejoice and just pat yourself on the back for walking all the way across the bridge, for not harming, but for being helpful in the situation. Congratulations. But you might not make it the first time. You know, you might slip over the edge and hang on with one arm to that bridge. Okay, or you might fall all the way off. And that's okay too, because again, you're going to build yourself a neural pathway by congratulating yourself. I remembered there was a bridge. I fell off of it, but I remembered. Okay. And so this is the 3% thing that positive psychology uses. Little manageable steps to help yourself. The work that we're doing here with the social and emotional development is consistently over time without ceasing. Change like this doesn't happen overnight. Right. And so you just pat yourself on the back. Hey, at least I remembered there was a bridge. And then when you go and make up after the event, the regrettable episode, just share with your person. Hey, listen, I really am working on this. I'm really trying. I learned about this thing called the bridge and I didn't cross it, but I thought about it. Right? So invite your person in, invite them into your process as much as is safe. If you only feel like sharing just a little bit, just share what feels safe for you and let them know that you are, you're trying, you're working on it. And then congratulate yourself for having that conversation as well. Okay. Now, there's one final thing that I kind of do want to point out. When we are in self-awareness, we are holding a great big non-judgmental space for the self. Okay. We have these emotions. We need them. We talked about this last week. We need to have these emotions. And so when I recognize that I'm in a moment of anger and I have that self-awareness dawn on me, then I just allow myself, oh, right now I feel angry. This is the emotion that is arising for me. Okay. So no judgment around these emotions that come up. Now, we would love to be very careful about moving into the self-management, because there we do need to discern. We need to discern behavior that is helpful from behavior that is harmful. And we cannot allow ourselves the harmful behavior. We would be well served by being constructive in our relationships rather than destructive. And so we just are mindful of places where we don't hold judgment around the self and what's going on, and then where we use our discerning mind so that we at least don't hurt others, right? At least be nice. Okay, at the very least, we can be nice. So please use the bridge as often as you can. And just remember, it's a practice. And we get better, and then some days we forget that there's a bridge, and then a couple days later, a week later, we remember. And so again, be easy on yourself, continue, and keep going, one foot in front of the other, right? We just keep going. What happens as we keep going and we see ourselves in our self-awareness, we see ourselves self-managing, we see our self-responsibility blossoming? Friends, these are the seeds of self-worth. This is where we really feel that we have what it takes to move through the hard times, that we have the inner durable resources. And if we don't ever have something to push up against, to struggle against, then we don't develop resiliency. We don't develop self-management. We don't develop a deep-seated sense of worth, of who I am, that I can overcome challenges. So everything that happens to us and for us and with us is just right. It's all there for a purpose. It all serves for our growth. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but in the end it does. My mom used to say, it'll all work out in the end. And if it isn't working out, if it hasn't worked out, then it's not the end. So keep going, friends. Persevere. Keep the faith. Stay strong, one foot in front of the other. And thank you for joining us here. If you are interested in more lessons and more ideas on social and emotional development, resiliency, perseverance, positive psychology, those kinds of things, please check out the resources that we have on the youthpositive.net website and also the mindfulseed.org website. We are here to serve you. We are here to help you with, I don't know, anything that you need. All of us here at Mindful Seed are really good cooks too, so if you just need help in the kitchen, call us up for that. We got to keep it light. We got to keep it fun. So thank you for joining us. Please have a beautiful rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you next week at 3:30 right here on Facebook Live, Mindful Seed. Thank you, friends.